Hello everyone, this is an example of a code challenge on leetcode. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use that to form the basis of this tutorial where I'm going to show you how to use Pytest and Parametrize. Parametrize lets you have a group of tests that you can run on one function. Hopefully I've explained that correctly. You'll see what I mean when I actually run it. So let's actually get on with it. So ToSum. This is an easy problem, categorized as easy on leetcode. And what you need to do is given an array of integers called nums and an integer called target, return the indices of the two numbers such that they add up to target. You may assume that each input would have exactly one solution, and you may not use the same element twice. You can return the answer in any order. Sorry, I just dragged that across a bit, didn't I? Let's make that bigger. So as you can see, there's 3 example tests, and that got me thinking, why don't I just actually write a test that I can do as well, and I can code all this in VS Code, or you could write it in your own editor, and then once you've tested it yourself, then you can paste it in here and actually test it in their GUI. That's partly down to my impatience, because when you test it here, it's quite slow. And what I'd rather do is just do it in my own editor and then just test it here once I know it's working, and then click submit. So with that being said, let's bring up VS Code and I'll show you what I've done. I've already written the solution and it's quite short. And actually up here I started with some nums. So the nums, let's put in a few more. Making a mess of that, sorry. And 7. And let's say I wanted to get a target of 12. So that should be index 1 and 2. So this function should return I and j as a tuple, which should be 1 and 2. Let me just show you that working. So we'll do print 2 underscore sum, and we'll pass it nums and target. Now when I run that, I should get 1 and 2 as tuple. There we go. So that is working. The code works. I'll just quickly run through how the code works. So I've used from typing import list. It's just good for error checking and type checking. Function's called 2 underscore sum, as per the name of the leetcode question. And then what I'm doing is saying for I in the range 0 to the length of the numbers, so 0, 1, 2, 3. So it's going to iterate 4 times, and then inside I'm going to have a second for loop, which for each of the outer loop values, I'm then going to go and search on an inner loop to see if any of those values added to the value from the outer loop combine to equal the target. So if target minus the nums of the inner loop equals the number of the outer loop, then return. Obviously that will just then return once it gets a successful answer, so you shouldn't end up with any duplicates, because otherwise you could end up with 1 and 2, and then you would also end up with 2 and 1. So yeah, that's working, but that took a while, and I've only tested it with these numbers. So just going to show you my folder structure. So I've got my source code, src, you see there, which is ind.py. IND stands for index, in case you're wondering. And then just above my my white circle where my head is, just here, test underscore. So with Pytest, it needs to begin with test or have test at the end. I put test at the start. So what I've written here, I've put it inside a test folder as well to do it properly. Import Pytest, because I'm going to be using pytest.mark.parametrize. Now this, you can get this kind of syntax from the Pytest site with some of their examples. So line 16 that you're looking at here is lifted exactly from their example. 17 and 19 are not, that's my own variation. Okay, so here we've got the path. So from if your source code is in a different folder to your test code, you just need to go back up. So you go back up from test to so the code Pytest actually runs within the top directory. So effectively, you're just saying go to the source directory and then get the ind module, and then from the ind module, so that's the function. So my function's called to_sums, and then that's what I'm going to be using in my test function. So my test function is called, your test function has to begin with test. So test underscore to_sum. So that's the name of the test function. And the test function uses my function, and my function takes A and B. So A and B here. So that's A. So A is the list which my function is expecting. You see, these tooltips here, my function is actually asking for a variable, a list called nums, or it's asking for a list, and then a target. So that's A. This is B. B is the target. And then expected, this is kind of what I got from the Pytest site. Expected is your answer that you know it should produce. And then the second argument, because the first argument is basically A, B, expected. The second argument is test data. And what test data is a list. It's a list of 3 different tests effectively. So within my one test, I'm running a test with 3 different lots of input, or lots of A, B, and expecteds. So let's run it and you will see what I've been talking about. Sometimes it's easier just to run it and show you rather than, so again, if you want to do this yourself, this is lifted from the Pytest test page, and all I've done is I've then just put in def and then the name of my function beginning with test, my test function even, A, B, expected. So that's the 3 lots of values which come from here. And then what we're doing is we're saying pass the first value and the second value to my function, which is this function, and expect to get that. And that is the third thing. Right, let's run it. So I've got on my activity bar VS Code, there's an icon with like a little, it's not a test tube, I don't know what it's called, but it's like a science testing tube, testing thing, isn't it? So click that, and you can expand it. So leet is the name of my top folder, and then LTC is kind of the project folder, and then test which is the name of my test folder, and inside my test folder I have test underscore 2 underscore sum.py. That's the name of the file, and then that's the name of the function. So if I come back up here to test and I just run test, it'll run everything. Got a little timer there, and it's run successfully. And if I expand it, this is the interesting bit. So it's run test 2, 2, 2. It's the same test run 3 times. But as you can see here, expected 0, expected 1, expected 2, and those, you see where the mouse is just there, those are actually the answers. So that's just showing you what was expected, and the tick obviously means it worked. So let's add another test. So so the test data is entirely up to you. And if you had some of this test data and you were right, you know your company used several languages, let's put some more things in here. So I'll do -5, and then I'll ask to get -4. So that should then give me 0 and 3, shouldn't it? So as a human being, I'm working this out in my head. I know that I need to get that, and I need to get that, and that will give me -4. So let's just run that again. And you can see here I've got a little grey circle, and that's because it's not been run yet. But it's already detected that it needs to run run a 4th test. So let's just run that. And it's worked. So my function works, but say for instance, you were expecting to get 1 in 6. So if I put 0 and 1 there, my test should now fail, because 1 in 6, the sum of 1 and 6 is 7, so it's not equal to -4, so this should fail. There we go. And it's given me kind of test 2. It tells me that it's yeah, it's even given me in VS Code is kind of popping up. There we go. At index 1, diff 3 not equal to 1. Expected 3. No, expected, oh sorry, expected minus, so expects -4. Change that to 7, then it will work again. There we go. So we've got 4 passing tests. So even though we've only written 1 test, it runs 4 times with different values. And that is using Parametrize. So at pytest.mark.parametrize, and you pass it. If you've installed it in VS Code, it'll give you the tooltips anyway. But you can see A, B, expected. This is for testing my function. So if you were passing in several more parameters as arguments, you could have A, B, C, D, E, so on. Where did I get this from? I got this from the test came from the challenge came from here. Yeah, we don't need to see the hints. Yeah, so what I actually did was I looped through it, and then on the inner loop I added the value of the inner loop to the outer loop and checked if it equaled the target, and then I returned the indexes of those, or the indices even. So yeah, that's kind of, you can plug that into LeetCode, and that's one answer on the board. It actually stores your answers, and then you can, is it going to let us look at the solution? Oh yeah, it tells us we need to sign in. Discuss 999 plus. Okay, these are not solutions for just that one problem, I don't think. Is this solutions for everything? Oh, that's just somebody that's just somebody trying to redirect traffic to their site, I see. So yeah, there we go. That's in actual fact, I'm outputting as a tuple, and it needs to be a list. So you would just put list in front of the tuple, and then you would convert it to a list. Okay, they've done that in Go. Actually, what we could do, let's cheat. Let's paste. Could we paste that into? You could paste their answer into the Go bit, and then you could. Oh no, it's not going to convert it, is it? Okay, that's all about indexing. Oh, we don't want that. Language Go. There we go, Python. There you go. It was worth holding on, hanging around for, wasn't it? That's not very Pythonic. They've called it. I think it's because the challenge called it toSum. I changed it to to_sum, all lowercase. Yeah. So, oh, they've used enumerate. Whereas I used in range from 0 to length of the numbers. Does the same thing, really. See that there? For I, and then value in enumerate nums. So that's basically giving you your 0, 1, 2, 3. Return I, and then scene remaining, where remaining equals your target. Okay, target minus your, yeah, so they've done that just with one for loop. That might be more efficient. There is complexity, now that's time complexity, space complexity. On LeetCode, they do sometimes, depending on the challenge, they will then not specify, sorry. Let me just close that. Yeah, on LeetCode, they will then, see I've got two loops. They will sometimes not accept the answer if it's using up too much memory, or if it's taking too long. And it tells you that your answer is faster than 23% of the other answers, or some such figure. So anyway, this has been Pytest. And just before I wrap up, I will just show you. This was where I got it from. This is where I. So if you're new to Pytest, probably the things you will learn once you've got past the sort of the first example is probably going to be a calculator where you've got add, subtract, multiply, and then you're just going to put in some numbers and have an assert which says assert, and then plug in your numbers, and 2 times 3 assert add 2 times 2 plus 3, and then double equals 5. What you'll do after that is yeah, you're probably learn about, you've got conv test, which I won't cover at the moment, but yeah, fixtures and parameterize. So parameterize, if you go to docs pytest.org example parameterize HTML, and scroll down until you get here. And the example that I used was this. So there's more variations on that you can look to use as well. But sometimes you might end up spend more time writing your test than you do on your code, which again, that may be how it is in certain companies or certain software projects, but really, pytest.mark.parametrize a, b, expected. So that is your first value. So that if you're doing the leetcode, that's your list, that's your target, that's your expected answer. Test data is what you pass it up here. So where I had test data with my tuples, there we go. There's what they're doing is they're checking one date minus another date is equal to that delta. So yeah, hopefully this has at least shown you that you can, sometimes you can spend more time testing stuff manually than it would take to write a test. So even if it's just your own personal project, you could come in and just write something quickly in Pytest and pass in lots of values. So yeah, there we go, Pytest and leetcode. Till next time, thumbs up, subscribe, click the bell, all that stuff. Yeah, thank you for watching.